Welcome to Iron Sights After Dark. During my 25 plus years in the fitness industry, I've always been passionate about expanding my physical, mental, and hard skills to be prepared for whatever life might throw at me. From fitness to firearms and beyond, taking a holistic approach to being prepared has led me on a journey to seek and share both knowledge and skills from expert resources in the civilian, LEO, military, and first responder communities. The mission of this podcast is to help others expand their capabilities and knowledge of preparedness while building strength in the community that shares similar goals and values. So ultimately, we contribute together and grow together. We've reached episode 25 on Iron Sights After Dark, and I want to highlight some of the best moments from our previous episodes. We're going to kick things off with a relatable story from our first episode featuring Jordan and Callaway Cook, two of my good friends right here in San Jose. You're going to hear about law enforcement, but in a different way, in a way that we all hate when we get pulled over.
We grew up in like the town that was like football was king. The stores closed down early on Friday nights. You know, it was just like Mayberry from Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody's business.
Everybody.
You can't walk out your front door without somebody.
Yeah, you do one thing, it's out in 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Like,
it was hard for
stay
Cal.
inside.
Really hard for Cal.
So give me an example. So
man.
what was the one thing that you did that you'd wish you hadn't done that got around town in 2 seconds?
goodness.
I've got a story.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple stories. You go ahead and share.
All right. So
We're here for it.
this is just, this is my past. We're kids every now and then. And I had we had a Friday night football game. Won't mention the others involved and will not mention the police officer involved. So
I like where this is going, John.
every single Friday night after a football game, we'd either go to Waffle House and eat.
Waffle
right?
House.
I love this story already.
And then we would meet up in the Walmart parking lot.
Football, Waffle House, and the Walmart.
Walmart
You can stop
parking
right
lot.
there.
Yeah, I mean, this was the
it.
plan,
Yeah, that's it.
And then you end up at Waffle House again, later in the night. But so you're in the Walmart parking lot. People come, they meet, and you talk, you hang out, then you figure out whose house you're going to, and you have your party, win or lose. And so, anyways, this one night, this was when I had hound dogs, and we would do raccoon hunting. And so you would train your dogs to run down raccoons. And
My brother had a red bone coonhound.
I had two red bones.
Yeah.
All right, people are gonna think I'm such a redneck. Promise I'm not. I was just
Where the Red Fern Grows. If you've ever seen it,
Where the Red Fern Grows.
which is an awful, depressing movie.
Terrible.
Like it'll rip your
Yeah.
heart out.
Uh-huh.
It'll make you cry.
It's
Grown
tough.
man, you will. If you don't cry, then you're not a human watching that movie. But yeah,
Yeah.
red bone coonhound. So you got your dogs.
Absolutely. So we had my dogs, and like throughout like middle school into high school, like I was training these dogs. I wake up at 4:30 every morning. I'm feeding them. I'm getting them out, playing with them, And so we go out, and me and my buddy and two other girls, we went out, and we're driving up 282 where we've got our dogs, and we're going to coon hunt.
Y'all know where 282 is, don't you?
Yeah, it's
282.
just up there
Just
past
up in the
past-
trees and the grass.
past the
Sorry,
rock
I'm
and
trying to
two
tell
middle.
this story being like cognizant of not using. So we get out there, and we have a 30 pack of beer in the car, because 30 pack was the only thing you could buy when you were 17. You don't get 6 packs.
Yeah.
So anyways, we go to the little gas station down the street, we get our beer, and we're going up. And of course, I'm cool. Hey, I'm gonna pop one, on the way up. Not drunk. I hadn't even had a beer yet, but I'm gonna pop one and have it in my container, in my I don't know if this is gonna be a good thing to keep on here, but anyways, so literally not maybe 5 minutes after I opened it, and the girls are in the back sipping on their beer, and my buddy's in his passenger seat sipping on his beer. Blue lights.
Oh boy.
All right. This just gives you an idea of how our town is. So we get pulled over. He looks up. What's going on, Cook? I'm like, hey, man.
Such a small town.
I'm terrified, right? They're like, oh, man.
You did it.
Yeah. And anyways, you played a good game, buddy.
We'll bleep that
all
part
this
out.
stuff. Yeah. You played a good game. And no. And he looks in there and he goes, oh, you boys are into some trouble, huh? Right. And we're like, man, I'm sorry. We haven't been drinking. We just popped it up, and we were going to go out there and just kind of, we're hunting. So he literally just says, well, don't worry. He was like, we'll get you escorted up. He calls another car, drives my truck home, puts us in the back seat, takes us to the house, and says, y'all have a good night, and just left it be. But that's the little things that like in a small town
Right.
that like you can do and get away with. And like, it's special.
Oh, yeah.
Those are memories,
Yeah.
you know?
Check out episode 1 After Dark to learn more about Jordan and Callaway Cook and their success scaling Paragon Body, a growing health and wellness brand right here in the Silicon Valley. Now, one of their clients is Kayley Gunner, a rising star in the adult film industry. Here's Kayley's transition from the military to adult film in episode number 5.
I ended up getting assigned as a machine gunner for a combat unit, so I got to do badass shit too, even though I worked in an office. So it all worked out.
So let's time this out. So you go into this admin job. Talk to me about what the admin looks like for you on a day-to-day. What's the day-to-day look like?
Like slotting like combat power, how many soldiers might be injured and undeployable versus who is deployable. Just like, it depends really where you're stationed, because each duty station, you might have a different type of HR position. Okay. Like for the combat unit, it was all about combat power. Like the colonel only cared about which guys can deploy, which guys
do we have enough people to fulfill the slots? If we don't, where are we going to get them from?
Job, like the cooks, the infantry, the scouts, like every position you can think of, the fuelers. And so it's a lot of pressure, but it was worth it. A lot was thrown at me and I had to like battle a lot of shit, but it put me where I am today, and I'm so thankful. So
let's talk about where you are today, because there's obviously going to be a transition here into adult film.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, people and your fans and your followers, and I certainly am curious about kind of how that happened.
I grew up, my mom is very religious. My dad, not so much. He's over here starting marijuana farms. And I mean, that's some kind of religion.
So a little bit opposite ends of the spectrum there, yeah?
My mom is very religious. She put me in like a very a Baptist school growing up before high school. And it was like you had to wear long skirts. You had to pray before every meal. You had to go to Bible school. It was a lot. So, you know, a lot of the people in the industry who were like Mormon and were in religious environments are the freakiest, honestly.
I've heard this.
Immediately, I knew I was different than other kids because I was really into boys right away. I was kissing boys on the campus, and a Bible teacher threw chocolate kisses at me in front of everyone.
This is a common tale too.
Yeah. So he threw chocolate kisses at me in front of everyone, and then I knew, okay, I'm different. Yep. Yeah, so I kind of knew about porn like younger, just seeing and being curious about it with all the kids in Bible school and like talking about it. And it made us very curious because we were not exposed to that kind of stuff.
Well, there's another part is you're not supposed to be talking about it or seeing it or hearing about it, whatever. And you're growing up in a time where it's all available to you right there on your phone.
Yeah, and we have the phones are a big thing.
Part of that is so you recognize you're different. Like
I was calling Playboy during sleepovers, like, can I be a Playboy bunny? And they're like, are you 18? I'm like, no, but I can be. Like, I'm just like being the complete rebel.
That's awesome.
Not
really. If I'm your dad, I'm so fucking pissed. But
we have to get into that because my dad knows what I do. So we'll talk about that too.
Let's do it.
Yeah. But eventually, so I was exposed to that stuff at a young age. Some people are different too. Like a lot of people will say, it ruined the way I view like my sexuality or sex. And for me, it didn't. It kind of like made me feel very confident in myself.
Do you mean it ruins your sexuality in terms of your connection to the act of having sex?
A lot of people say that now. Like you'll see musicians coming out talking about how porn is like ruining their image of themselves and sex. It's all about how you view things. And really, we shouldn't be exposed to that as children. But, you know, shit happens. Like, it doesn't, you can't control everything that your kids see, unfortunately.
Look, whether it's on a computer, on a phone or whatever, I saw my first Playboy when I was like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah. Some people see it hanging in the garage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's with media.
It's human nature.
It is.
But anyway, so my husband knew some girls who were cam girls. He was definitely cheating on me for sure, but with many women.
Okay.
But so he knew some girls who were doing cam, and we went over and they were like showing me, wow, you're so pretty and you're in the military. You should totally be jumping on this cam thing if you want to make more money, because you don't make a lot of money in the military. Okay. So they were teaching me camming basically. And then I never talked to them again after that, but I was so curious every day. I would go to my job.
So you didn't actually do this?
I did.
You did do it?
Not yet. I would go to my job and I would just think, man, these girls are making like $2,000 in a few hours and I'm making $2,000 a month. Like it was a horrible feeling knowing that people were just doing it so easy. And I was struggling door dashing after work from 5 p.m. until midnight.
You work for DoorDash?
Not anymore, but I did in the Army.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I did this hair pyramid scheme. And I was just like,
You were just trying to get paid.
hustling and doing anything I could, seeing what would work, what would take off for me. Because I knew I was going to get out of the military and it was time. Like I was coming to the end of my time and I needed
There was going to have to be something.
Match my pay or double my, whatever I had to do. So I tried camming, and you're not supposed to be doing this kind of thing in the military. I can talk about it now, but I couldn't talk about it then, obviously. So I went under a different name. It was Kay. I was going under that name, Kay, and camming, and I was making good money, more than I was making in the military. And this was about my last year in.
So it's becoming a reality.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can get out, go to college easy.
With this kind of dough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to my understanding is camming has different levels, right? There's different things going on. Maybe just talk about kind of some of the things that you were doing on your show.
Yeah. I started scared to even show anything. Like I was like, oh, if someone recognizes me from the military, I'm screwed and I can lose my benefits, like everything I worked so hard for. So that's why too, I waited until the end when I knew I was getting close to getting out. Eventually, obviously, like over time, I was like, I'm not making enough money. Like I need to be doing more. I need to play the game. I need to just take more clothes off, or I need to do cum shows.
So are you just having a conversation with people on these shows?
At first I was.
I mean, some of this stuff could be just hanging out in your kitchen.
And now I still cam to this day, and I make good money in an hour. Just if I have an hour downtime at night, I'll do it. And it's just talking. Like most people just want a friend. Like you don't even have to do all that, the nudity or anything. Like you can, even if you're topless, you can make good money just talking to somebody and being their friend. That's really what it is. My fans were the one reason I joined the adult industry. They're the reason I learned how to pay taxes. They gave me so much good advice about cars. They taught me so much.
Wow.
I didn't have a husband or my parents, I kind of moved out on my own, out of the military, away from them in California. So they were literally my best friends.
You had some influences there, and they said, hey, you're doing a really good job.
Yes,
and they connect you with an agency.
Yes.
So let's go back, because you just mentioned, like, there's a lot of horror stories out there, apparently, where people have gotten just, like,
horrible.
This is not a legit agency, or it is an agency, and the shit that they're doing is awful. It's bad people doing bad things to people.
Just like how I said, there can be bad people or good people in the military, and just the same thing here.
So, and I would imagine if you're getting connected with a decent agency, whatever that means in the industry, I have no clue what that means. There's a vetting process that goes on here, right? Obviously, you have to show that you can perform.
Yes.
So there's that, but there's got to be, like, what's the lead up to this? You just write them an email, or
it was that easy. I was surprised. They're like, here's some. I'll name some. Spiegler, Next Level. Spiegler was a big one. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but
I don't.
He has the top stars. So I knew, like, when I emailed him, he wasn't going to take me. And I was telling all these agencies, I've never done this before. I only want to do girls. I'm scared.
Okay, so you put some limitations, but go back. Like, you've been crushing everything up until this point, and I just heard you say, like, you knew he wasn't going to take you. Why would you think like that? Like, why would that change all
Because I don't have any proof of me ever being on camera doing this.
You don't have a product yet.
Yes. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to work my way to get into his agency. So I that was a big plan for me my first year. I was like, I'm going to start with whoever will take me, and then whatever shit I have to go through, I can handle it. I've been through worse, and I know someday I'll be able, if this is for me, then maybe they'll take me. So I just took the first agency that was like, yes.
Okay.
But I made sure I went on, it's called AVN. I went on, it's like an adult website. They do the award shows. I went on their website and looked at the list of agencies. I didn't just listen to my fans just in case. They did give me good, reliable sources, but I went and looked at the list of the top winning agencies, basically. And I just went down the list, emailed them. And that's when my first agency, Next Level, they got back to me, and they were like, we take a lot of new girls. We would be perfect for you, but we want to make sure that you can be a good product for us. Right. Yes, basically. It's just like the military, when I sold my body to be a weapon, this was like, I was a product.
That's how you were, that's how you were reviewing it. That's interesting.
I am a business, so.
Yeah, and that's exactly. So you have to look at it like that still.
Besides joining the military, that was the second bravest thing I've ever done, was going to, they flew me out, paid for my flight and hotel, and flew me out to a random state to do this with a random person, with strangers I never met.
It's gonna be scary.
Yeah, it was definitely brave of me, for sure. It could have been a dumb decision, or it could have been a great decision, but so far it's worked out. I don't suggest people just meet up with strangers, and do this, because there could be some sketchy people faking that they're a company. But at least I went through an agency first, and I didn't just go try to shoot a random porno on someone's couch.
Right. To hear Kayley's full story, check out After Dark episode number 5. Next, we're heading to Las Vegas, where I sat down with Luis, Jerry, and Brian to learn how they met to co-found Triple Feed. Now, each has a different background, which you can hear in depth on YouTube on episode 11 of After Dark. But here we're going to hear from Jerry, who had an interesting choice to make as a young man, joining a gang in LA or becoming a cop for the Los Angeles Police Department.
Family of two immigrants, both La Frontera de Mexico, from Tijuana and Rosarito. So mom from Rosarito, my dad from Tijuana. And I was born in the States. My family ended up immigrating eventually the right way. They came over, they got work visas, they worked their asses off, they worked in the fields, they worked in factories. They both had 2-3 jobs at a time. I never got to see my family. I was always at home, either with my older siblings. We grew up poor. We grew up dirt poor, but I didn't know I was poor. I just knew I had shoes, a roof over my head, and and I had food. And I was like, okay, that's just a typical, Hispanic family growing up in South LA. From there, I kind of knew that I wanted to do law enforcement from a very, very young time. And most of it came from the area that I grew up in. I grew up in a very high crime area, like right next to Compton, the city named Paramount.
I know Paramount.
Yeah, Paramount's it's a if you break it down, Paramount's more of an industrial city.
It's west of Downey.
It's south of Downey.
South, okay.
Yeah, south of Downey, which is literally the city adjacent to Compton. Right next to Rancho Dominguez, right next to Long Beach, right next to Norwalk. So it's a 2-by-3 mile city, really small, but extremely populated, and the majority of it is Hispanics. It's mostly Hispanic. So all the people that I knew in that area were all gang members. They grew up in and out of jail, juvie. The cousins that I grew up with directly that lived in the same apartment that I lived in were in and out of juvenile hall all the time. Drugs, fucking doing and when I say drugs, I don't mean just weed, they were doing hardcore shit. And my dad and my mom used to whoop my ass when I used to hang out with them, whoop my ass. Good. But as a kid, I'm like, I want to hang out with my cousins. I want to hang out with the kids. I don't want to be locked up in the house. This is boring, dude. But then I started getting a very bad distaste towards stuff like that. At a very, very young age, I got mugged a bunch of times walking to school. This is me in second grade walking to school. In second grade. You're how old in second grade? 7? I can't math well either, but 7 years old, and I'm walking to school by myself. Different times, obviously. I would not even allow my 11-year-old kid to go to school, even if I could see him walking to school. It's just the way it is. But back then, parents were like, hey, I'm going to work. Here's your lunch, and
see you later.
I'll see you tonight at 7 for lunch or for dinner. So different times, I'm sure you were kind of the same. You and I have talked about this a lot. And during those times, I got into fights. I was hanging out with the wrong crowds, and I started seeing how bad it was in the area. And I would get beat up. I would get mugged by gangsters, and the cousins that I did grow up with. The older I got, the more I noticed this is going to be a very bad decision if I continue working with him. If I continue hanging out with him. He was like, we're going to my friend's house. He was 2 years older than me. And he goes, hey, carry this stuff. And he gives me something, and I look at it, and it was an ice pick. And I go, there's no ice where we're going. And he goes, just put it in your pocket. It's cool. Don't worry about it. I'm like, all right, cool. All right. And this is 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, walking down. We get hemmed up by local sheriffs. Code 3, turn on their lights.
Bunch of 10-year-olds out of what time of night?
10:30, 11 o'clock.
Okay, and then in that neighborhood.
Yeah, in the hood. And we're like, okay, hems us up. And I had the ice pick in my hoodie sweater.
This is not going to end well.
And I have it right here tucked in. And when he said, hey, put your hands on the hood, I did this. And for some reason at 9:10, I go, okay. And the ice pick flies 10 yards that way.
Shit.
And the lights were on, siren was on. So he didn't hear it. He didn't see it. Get hemmed up. And I remember he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing out here? You should be home. You should be ashamed of yourselves, blah, 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 blah. And my cousin's just giving him lip. You cop.
Right.
Pig. And I'm like looking at him like, fuck, why am I hanging out with this guy? Like, this is my blood. This is my cousin, legit cousin. But I'm like, oh, fuck, he's going to get me in trouble, dude. And cop comes up to me. He goes, how old are you? Like, where do you live? Like, I'm like, oh, I live over there. All right. Throws us in the back of the squad car and he drops us off to each individual house. I didn't get caught.
Well, he takes you home.
He takes me home. Talks to my mom and dad. He goes, you know, he's out and about. He's, you know, doing bad shit. And you need to keep a watchful eye on him. Obviously, my mom and dad kicked the shit out of me at night. And that's when I kind of got like a lot of respect for cops. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I need to step away from this lifestyle. And that's what I want to do when I grow up.
Jerry later accomplished his childhood dream of becoming a cop for LAPD. Check out the full episode. Again, that's After Dark number 11. Now, Triple Feed will be instructing a few courses this year at California Range Weekend. A California Range Weekend is the largest firearms training event in California that takes place at Burro Canyon Shooting Park in the mountains just outside of LA. I traveled there to sit down with the masterminds behind the event in episode number 22. And here's Tony Molina on what to expect and how to attend this year, November 5th and 6th, 2022. The West Coast California people are going to be here. This is your opportunity to, like, this isn't a DM. This is a fucking handshake and eye-to-eye contact and a real conversation. Let's go. Let's hang out.
And what's going to be a lot of fun about this, even though they're spectator tickets, I'm kind of interested to see how people feel about it, because what I'm going to also allow happen is if you pay for a spectator ticket, you're allowed to take part in the challenges.
I love it.
And yeah, they're going to take part of the challenges. So, but that builds the drive for, I got to be better.
Also gives them that experience. Like, you may think something, but you don't know until you do it.
You have a guy who goes, I don't really shoot too much, right? But I think I'm a good shooter. And then you come out and you shoot. Maybe you don't do as well, because the guys who are out here paid for the ticket and who are trained all the time, you may get smoked. I've gotten smoked. It's okay. It happens. But
I expect to get smoked.
But you realize it does two things for you. One, you go, if I really want to be part of this community, I got to step my game up.
Yep.
Two, those guys know what they're fucking doing.
Right.
I gotta be hanging out with them, or I gotta be part of whatever training they're in, so I can be at that level. Yeah. So it helps to build that community and gives opportunity for more people. And at the same time, it could also be for the person who's like, hey, you know what? I can't really afford to spend the money on this, but I want to be able to support.
Or if you don't get, for whatever reason, you don't get a ticket, if you're not on your shit, and you don't enroll soon enough.
Shit, man, for all we know, as soon as we drop tickets, 10 minutes later it can be sold out, for all we know. Who knows?
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I want to be part of that vendor group. I want to be out here. I want to be meeting people. Yeah. I want to be talking to people. I want to be finding out what we can do to support the community and support that being the participants, the spectators, and the other vendors that are here. So, I mean, I'm stoked about that.
I'm not worried about the how much money I make. I'm worried about my success. I base my success, Jesse's success, my team's success on, did everyone who was here go, I cannot wait for the next year, and everyone who didn't go, I should have been there. Why didn't I sign up?
I got to tell you, like, today, and that's the time that we spent together and the people that were here, I think you've been very successful there, and it will only grow from that, where people will be like, when's it going to happen, and how do I sign up for this? Yeah. There's going to be this thing, as you just said, is going to evolve. Yes. And I love, Jesse, that you're already thinking next year and the year after that, right? Because
absolutely,
the sky's the limit, right? You're going to keep going with this thing.
I can see it. I can already see it going beyond this. Like, there's not a shadow of doubt in my head that it's going to go beyond this, because even the variety of classes that we're offering, I've never seen that anywhere. Right? You got Fabio doing USPSA classes.
Let's talk about all this. Yes.
Yeah, we got Nate coming back with his entry class. Yep. We got who do we got else? We got Gabe coming back doing a vehicle course.
Yeah, so we have Lucas has come out, and so we have 10 instructors. So we'll start with Cowell, because he's top of my head right now. He's teaching 2 classes. He's going to be teaching a night vision course. He's going to be our night vision instructor. So anyone looking to do night vision work, he's going to be your guy. Second, he's also going to be teaching a CQB course.
You guys have a shoot house.
We have a shoot house up here.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that before.
Not yet. We have a shoot house up here. He is going to be teaching it for safety reasons. He is going to be teaching because it's a 1 day. A lot of shoot house stuff is usually a 2 day stuff. So for safety reasons, we are going to be doing an airsoft, but
that makes for perfect fucking sense. And to anybody out there that might be turning their nose up at that, like on a 1 day, full day event, like stop it.
Yeah, because honestly, like the knowledge you're going to gain out of that is phenomenal. And
we already know, like the whole airsoft thing with the force on force stuff is phenomenal.
You can't.
Right? You don't need to be shooting live rounds.
Yeah. Hey, you get to save some ammo with the ammo prices. You get to save some ammo. I think you'll be able.
So get your airsoft setups.
Yeah. Well, and we're also going to get some. I think we're working on. I don't want to name names yet, but we're working on some companies to help supply.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
Stuff.
Yeah,
we're working on some quality guys to supply some quality gear for these classes. So. It's not going to be janky rinky-dink stuff.
So even if you don't have an airsoft setup or whatever, what about the night vision shit?
So the night vision thing, I am working with a guy. He's going to be actually helping supply night vision people to rent. Ooh. So we're going to actually have people be able to rent night vision.
Dude, don't sleep on that if you haven't had an opportunity.
If you don't own your own night vision, that doesn't mean you can't be part of it. You can go ahead and rent. And we tried to do it last year. It unfortunately didn't work out. The people who are listening who were here, like, so we tried that last year, didn't work. This year, it's going to work, and it's part of an actual class this year. So you'll be able to actually rent the stuff and take a course. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be legit.
That's tough to do, man.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So Cal was doing that. Then we have Lucas, who's going to be teaching a vehicle CQB course.
So we're gonna have some vehicles up there.
And I've been a part of his vehicle courses. They're fucking amazing.
Legit. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things.
He has a lot of quality knowledge.
I trained with Lucas and Mason last year.
Okay.
Yeah, for the low light stuff, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah. So he's coming up here doing his thing. Triple Feed's teaching 2 classes as well. They're teaching a white light handgun course, focused a lot on the handheld stuff because a lot of people misunderstand. You've taken his class.
I've taken several actually.
So you know
several from him. Yeah.
How underappreciated a handheld weapon light is.
Yep. And by the way, they've got the 3 guys that are going to be here for that. They're phenomenal dudes. B-Dub, Luis, and
I've done low light stuff with him over at LAX, and he's amazing.
Yeah,
the stuff he provides is amazing.
It's large. They spend a lot of time talking about the handheld lights. They go beyond the weapon lights. If you're thinking just weapon lights, oh, that's cool. I got a weapon mounted light on, my pistol or my rifle.
No,
I mean, these guys are going to blow your mind. They're gonna make you think different.
The second class he's offering.
The second class.
This was
amazing.
We got
a little taste today.
We got a little taste.
Everyone. This is basically going to be a little Iron Sight exclusive.
Yeah.
They're teaching a class that's called a broken carbine, Triple Feed broken carbine. It's nothing sexy, as he talked about it. It's not going to be sexy. It's not going to be the most fun thing to be able to see on Instagram. But it's
so practical.
It's the most practical,
so practical,
and the most I think fun class that we're probably going to have.
And by the way,
if I can put it in Eric from Howitzer's words, it's probably going to be a fucking nightmare.
Oh, it will be.
It's going to be a nightmare,
but it's going to be the funnest nightmare you've ever had because the Triple Feed guys are amazing.
Like you said, it's very practical, right? Dealing with malfunctions and being able to work through them.
And it's not just a malfunction of I expected a bang and went click. I expected a bang and went click. I looked at my rifle and then I see 3 different casings in my rifle.
He even touched on shooting with one arm.
Yep.
Right.
With the carbine. There's
left and right arm. So you're dealing with multiple stuff here. How to do so many different pieces. So there's gonna be so much. It's gonna be chaos.
It's be dense. Very dense.
But it's stuff that everyone needs to know how to do.
Now, to learn more and sign up to attend California Range Weekend, go to carangeweekend.com. Now, Tony mentioned that you'll have the ability to actually rent night vision and get a chance to actually use expensive equipment and experiences down there that you might not otherwise get. Don't sleep on that before tickets run out. Now, speaking of night vision, in episode number 20 of Iron Sights After Dark, we discussed night vision in depth with resident expert Bryant Pham. If you're new to night vision, listen to Bryant describe how to navigate getting into night vision.
Getting into night vision is incredibly daunting, right? If you do a Google search for night vision, you're going to see results that cost anywhere from $500 to $40,000. So how the fuck do you pick a set of night vision when that's like your first result? When you've got 5 different websites that are each selling a PVS 14, and that PVS 14 on one website costs $1,500, on another site it costs $5,000. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, what's the difference? Where do I even start, right? So I've helped a lot of guys get into night vision over the past couple of years. I actually just helped a friend buy a brand new set of night vision 2 nights ago. And when it starts with the buying process, immediately you need to understand, one, what is your use case? What is your need? And what's your budget, right? Budget really is going to define what you're going to get as probably the most important factor here. So as someone starting out with night vision, let's say they're a range goer or maybe an airsofter or someone who's using it for astronomy. I get some guys ask me about astronomy for night vision.
Oh, which is one of the coolest things you can do with these things.
Oh, yeah.
If you've never looked at the stars under night vision with almost zero ambient light,
oh my god,
holy shit,
it's crazy.
It'll change your world.
The shooting stars just flying by like every couple seconds.
It really is amazing. Yeah. So I just want to throw that in there like that. You could stand out on the range and not shoot one round and still have a great time, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of other night vision, like I go camping, hiking with night vision. There's just so much you can do with night vision aside from, the cool shit or the tactical training, right? But it starts with use case and then budget, right? So if this is a serious application for someone who's looking for it to depend their life on, that's going to change some things, right? It might influence them towards a more robust dual tube system. But again, we have to understand budget. So budget is going to define if we get a single tube, if we get dual tubes. The dual tubes are going to be more expensive. And we have to understand the differences, the disadvantages, the advantages between a single tube and a dual tube system, right? So a single tube system, a PVS 14, right? It's a single night vision device over one eye. It's typically worn over your dominant eye since that's going to least fuck with your brain.
That's your aiming eye. That's the one you're going to almost all the time anyway, right?
Exactly.
That's we're kind of jumping ahead here, and I'm just going to throw out there, if you're not watching this on YouTube, there's a table here full of equipment. There's a couple of helmets here. There's there's a couple sets of night vision tubes. We have a few uppers here with lasers and IR stuff on them. Also lights with IR capability. So there's a lot of stuff here. Mounts, which is something to speak of. So you're getting into the budget piece, and I just want to put that out there. We're going to talk about a lot of this equipment and maybe point some things out. So if you're listening and you want a little bit more of a closer look or a little bit, better visual, you can literally get that over on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go there. Yep. But to the point of budget, like it's not
just the night vision.
It's not just about buying the goggles. I mean, it's everything from mounting systems to the caps to cover them to the list goes on, which I'm sure you're going to do. I just want to point that out.
So night vision devices. So we talked about, we're starting with the budget, right? The single tube versus the dual tube. Once we've decided that quad tubes for the ballers out there.
$40,000 setup, the EOTech tubes.
Yeah. So for the ballers out there, that's an option. But typically when I've helped people along their path into night vision, the majority of people have gone and said, I want to save that. I'm going to spend that pretty penny. I'm going to go for the dual tubes because there are guys like us who are thinking, I'm going to use this in a potentially life-threatening situation, or I really want the upper edge in airsoft, or whatever it is. They want that best. And why they're choosing the dual tube over the single tube is you get that full depth perception, right? So when you have a single tube over your eye, you lose that depth perception. And so walking around, navigating at night, it gets immensely harder, even just like reaching out to things. You don't have that depth perception.
Yeah, this can be easily experimented with with no tubes at all. Just cover one eye and try to walk through your house.
Exactly.
Right, which might not actually be a good example because you kind of know your way around in there already. But sit at the stoplight, right?
Drive
in your car, and close one eye, or whatever. That might sound dangerous, but the point of that is it changes the game. Yep. So I hear what you're saying. So one tube versus single or dual tubes.
Yep.
So your dominant eye is what's looking through the single tube. That's the PVS 14 that you mentioned.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So now when we move to a dual tube system, on the table we have a set of DTNVS and a set of Katana night vision goggles, both with green and white phosphor tubes, which we'll get into. But okay, we've settled on dual tubes. Now, there's a couple more decisions we have to make. Do we want articulation, meaning these bendy boys right here, meaning they can roll out, or do we want a fixed goggle system? And I don't happen to have a fixed goggle system in front of me right now, but what that means is that they don't articulate. They're just fixed to this position. They go in and out on this horizontal plane to adjust for your ocular range, the width of your eye, but that's it. And so that also affects budget, because articulation is more expensive.
Yeah, there's more mechanicals there, right?
Exactly.
All kinds of different moving parts. It's going to cost more, but it also, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would mean there's more room for mechanical failure.
Correct. Those fixed goggles are machined aluminum oftentimes. That shit's durable. Like you can conk it around, bash it on stuff. It's not going to break. Whereas these articulating goggles are often injection formed, injection molded, or even in the case of those, injection infused polymer, nylon infused polymer.
So they're not necessarily delicate, but they could be compromised.
Yes, there's a joke that the PVS 31 alphas that are issued to a lot of guys, like if you look at them wrong, they're gonna snap in half.
You mean like government issued shit?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that was Bryant discussing how to get started and single versus dual tube night vision. If you head over to the Iron Sights YouTube channel and watch After Dark number 20, you're gonna see all the gear and be able to learn all about it. At this point, we've heard from a variety of guests who all have dedicated a large portion of their time and energy towards fitness or preparedness training of some sort. That's one of the main themes of this show, how to stay prepared. Next, we're gonna hear from Byron Rodgers, who will discuss a real life example of why this is important and how it saves lives overseas. Here's Byron Rodgers on staying prepared on the battlefield in Iraq.
Something I learned in combat in Iraq firsthand was just, dude, like, if you've never thought about something, you don't have any software for that, you are at a high, you're vulnerable to freezing. You're vulnerable to not taking good action. And so like when we were going right into combat on multiple occasions, I would always tell my guys like, hey, like, what are you going to do when we get blown up? What are you going to do when we start taking fire? What are you going to do? I'm like, think about it now. Think about it now. And it was a scary thought for some of them, and then I remember one day, one of my boots, one of my Jundies, my new dudes was like, hey, well, we got blown up. And I remember he was like, well,
Wait, blown up? Is that like IED blown up?
Yeah, IED. We hit an IED, man. We got rocked. I remember he was the one arguing with me, and he was like, he's like, geez, when are we going to get blown up? He's like, if we get blown up. And I'm like, no, man, like we're in an area of operation where 80% of our IEDs are victim initiated, man. You need to come to grips with the fact that it's going to happen. And when it happens, you need to know what you're going to do before it happens and think about it right now, play it out in your head. And so I'm playing out these scenarios constantly where I'm going, and it's not a paranoia thing. It's not like a fearful thing. What ends up happening is I feel prepared.
There's strength in that. There's strength in that.
Yeah, like, okay, cool. Like if the worst thing happens in this room, I'm sitting here, I can do this, I can get my family through there, and we can go take this route. Boom. Okay. Now let's have dinner, and it's like, I feel great actually. But for having gone over that in my head, and after we did get blown up, I've been in 5 IEDs. After we did get blown up, he came to me afterwards and he's like, hey, Corporal, I did exactly what I thought I was going to do when it happened, because I thought about it before it would happen. And he was thanking me so much because he would have been the guy that would have froze, because he was the most psychologically averse. He had the most like cognitive dissonance about it. And I was just like, awesome. And then for me too, I was like, this is the way to help people really get the software they need written before they have to use it in real time,
That was Byron Rodgers from episode 3 of Iron Sights After Dark podcast. Other notable episodes include episode 10 with professional photographer Frank Visco. Have a listen.
I didn't have to do chemo or anything. It was early. It was like pre-stage 1, whatever.
So they caught it early.
Yeah. And I just had surgery. Took a nut and that was it.
These things happen.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was it. I didn't have to, they said you can do chemo if you want. But it wasn't metastatic.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't necessary. They said there is a chance of it coming back, but with testicular cancer, it's such a low recurrence rate. It's not, from what my urologist at the time told me, he said it's the only cancer that's considered curative if you catch it before it's metastatic and it's removed.
So if you're going to get cancer, this is what I've heard too. Like if you're going to get cancer and they catch that one earlier, that's the one you want as a male.
Yeah. It's famously, who was the biker, the cyclist? Lance Armstrong. Yeah.
His shit spread though.
He found a lump. They let it go for years. He just thought it was a cyst from riding a bike so much. And his actually spread to his brain, which doesn't normally happen with testicular cancer. And his lungs and like everywhere else. And he had a golf ball sized tumor in his head. And he's still, they took him all out and they put him on chemo and he went through hell, but still came out. That if that was any other cancer, he wouldn't have made
probably
it. Yeah.
Right. Episode 14 with Jake the Hunter, soon to be one of the fastest guns of the West on the USPSA circuit.
I grew up like the shooting aspect wasn't really necessarily for fun. It was like what we learned as like a staple, like keep the coyotes away from the cattle, keep the pigs out of the pens. You know what I mean? It was just, you shot to kill the varmints or whatever that was on the ranch, or to get food for lunch or the next day or whatever. And so, and then it was like, you know, target shooting in between, like bring the 22s out and plink. And so since I think I shot my first gun was like 3 or 4. And then, you know, shot coyotes and pigs and stuff like that growing up. And not until like, you know, I started watching movies, more action movies and stuff like that, and seeing like, oh, wow, there's, you can shoot fast and this and that. And my whole life, everyone, you're amazing shot, man, you're so accurate. But it was never fast because I shot bolt actions, revolvers, lever actions. You know what I mean? It was never about speed. It was about accuracy. Like, man, he hit that pig 200 yards running type of stuff.
It's
like,
one shot.
You know what I mean? So I was like, man, you're accurate. And I was like, oh, thank you. And like, we'd go out shooting and like, oh, you see that bird 150 yards away? I bet you can't hit it. And like, oh, wow. And so it went from that, and we heard about like action shooting, right? Like, you know, getting into it, that I found out it was like in a sport, like people do it.
How did you find out about this? So you mentioned the movie thing.
So like, So actually it was like at my grandparents', the first time I ever seen anything, it was at my grandparents', I remember. And it was like I don't know, it wasn't Top Shot. It was like something about like the 3-gun nationals or something at the time, right? And it was like the orange walls and like the cones, and like it was like beep, and he runs and grabs a gun shooting, and they're running through the thing. And I just remember watching it and I was like, man, that would be really cool, but it would be really hard, like to remember where to go and all that. And everyone's like, you could probably do it. And that's like the first time I really seen it, but I didn't know how to get into it or where it was. I thought it was just like national level, like Olympic type stuff. I didn't think anyone could do it. So it went from that to just back at the ranch, just shooting, hunting, whatever. And it got to a point to where we found out about this virtual reality shooting place near my house that's not there anymore. But you go, it has like the cert Glock, like with the fake slide with the laser and stuff like that. Found out about that. And I was like, I just went to have fun, right? I just want to shoot some targets. And I go, and like this, there's like these bottles. It's like 10 bottles. You shoot them. 10 more bottles come in, shoot them. 10 more bottles.
This is like on a big, like a big projection
like a TV screen. The laser, like it connects the laser.
We called that Duck Hunt when I was a kid.
No,
it was Nintendo.
It was like that, but it was like different scenarios, different situations and targets and stuff like that. And so it was cool, but I've never shot a semi-automatic handgun, right? Like I have a revolver. That's the only.
This is fascinating to me, by the way. Like
First time I ever picked up a semi-automatic handgun, and obviously it didn't cycle or anything. It was just, you know, fake Glock. So I pick it up, and the bottles, they tell me what to do, shoot the bottles, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool. And I set it on the table, and she was like, oh, you can start with it in your hand. And I was like, no, it's okay.
This is the lady that's kind of directing you.
This lady is just the one who runs the program, right? The first time I met her. And so she doesn't know who I am, what I've shot before or anything like that. And I think I was like 12.
Yeah, why would she, right?
Yeah, exactly. So go up, and she was like, oh, you can start with it in your hand. I was like, no, I'll sit on the table, like just for fun. Cause like I said, I've seen movies and shows and stuff, just like reaction time. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I'll do that. She was like, okay, like react off like it was like a light. It wasn't actually a beep. It was like a little light came on. She was like, go off that. And I was like, all right. And it goes, and the bottles slide in. I pick it up, I break the 10 bottles, break the 10 bottles, break the 10 bottles. And I set it down, and I turned around. The lady like looked at me and like looked at my dad and was like, wow. And I was like, what? And she was like, what do you shoot? My first thing she asked, what do you shoot? And I was like, coyotes. she was like, what? And I was like, what? She was like, what pistol do you shoot? And I was like, I don't have a pistol. She was like, I don't know who you are. I don't know your financial situation. She looked at my dad and she was like, you need to buy him a semi-automatic handgun. And we're all like, kind of like, why? And she was like, well, a cop was just in here for 3 days trying to beat that record, like what you just did. And he finally beat it yesterday. Like he got like however much time with, however many misses. I beat his time by like 2 seconds and had like 2 less misses than he did on the thing. And so I was like, I didn't know what to think of it. I was just like, she says that to everyone. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I'm so sure that everyone's just good.
Totally get it.
A couple more situations, happened. I was like shooting them and she was like, yeah, like honestly, like you need to get a semi-automatic handgun.
And of course, all the After Dark episodes, my good friend and co-host, JP, otherwise known as @TrainWithPurpose Official. JP, what up?
What up?
Once again, anyone who knows me knows how important the training aspect is for me personally outside of the gym. I'm constantly looking to level up my knowledge and skills. Here's an episode I did on Rogue Methods Close Contact Gunfighter course and how it changed my approach to fitness, gear, and my mindset. The Close Contact Gunfighter program covers this evolution of a gunfight at sort of close range. The focus is to build sort of a foundation of fundamentals, but also some skills, again, with that close contact range. I might also add that it wasn't all wrestling and gunfighting. We did do some other practical skills, about an hour talking about tourniquets, the tourniquets themselves, construction, proper use, proper storage, but more importantly, proper application in several sort of chaotic situations, one of which was in a car. And then we went into sort of a transition into what clinch fighting is like. And for a lot of people that were there, it was very new. That included striking, grappling, ground fighting. It's all culminated sort of at the end of the day with some closing scenarios, which included both your personal pistol and holster, as well as some simulation pistols and holsters, including live action drills with simunitions. To catch things up, let's take a listen to our most recent and one of our most popular After Dark episodes ever, episode 24 with Rick Field, who spent 27 years working in the most high security prisons in California. Here's Rick on his training and how staying prepared took direct effect when somebody attempted to murder him on the inside of California state prisons. We arrest criminals and we put them behind bars. And then after that, we
forget about them.
We forget about them.
We read in the headlines how heinous the crime was. And, like the guy down from Bakersfield that took the little girl off the streets, I think she was 17, 18 years old. And I read the case file at the time and I can't remember all the particulars, but he took her to a seedy hotel and he killed her and drove a landscape spike through her neck, put her on all fours and did bad things to her for a couple of days after she was dead. And while he was doing that, stabbing her with pruning shears, those types of things.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And this is the type of guy, that comes into the prison. And obviously that's, when you read the story, or you get a news feed on your phone, you're like, oh, wow, that guy, oh my gosh, people like that exist in life. And by the way, he later on killed somebody inside the prison as well and did really bad things to the person that he killed. And I don't want to get too much into that because it's very, very gruesome. But so, we're dealing with these types of people. I take my brothers and sisters down at Kern Valley and 3/4 of the population at Kern Valley, the inmate population, are doing life or extremely long terms, and they don't have a lot to lose. They don't understand that they could do better even in the prison setting. A lot of them are involved in gangs. It's very, very difficult for these people to do what we say, do their own time. Usually you have to become affiliated once you go into a prison. That's how you survive. And that affiliation requires you to do certain things. And
these are not good things.
They're not good things. No.
These are not community service oriented things.
No. And it's not unusual for, somebody to go in and doing a, 10-year prison sentence and wind up, staying in prison their whole life because of additional things they've done, offenses that they've done inside prison offenses, and these are the types of things, these type of people that we're dealing with. So, yeah, I've seen some very horrific things inside of prisons. I've seen cops, be attacked. I had a guy in early on in my career try to stab me. And we were doing a cell extraction and the SWAT team got activated because one of the officers doing cell extractions before the SWAT team got activated. We knew that these guys had weapons because we found metal missing inside the cells on the desk areas. It's stainless steel, and they cut it out. It's crazy how they cut metal with things like.
It's interesting what you were saying. Yeah, it was interesting what you were saying. Going back to Attica real quick, and that they're swapping of the uniforms, and people think, oh, these are dumb people that are behind prison. When the reality of it is while they may be maniacal and evil, and some level, there's some level of brilliance in what they do. So going back, I mean, they're finding ways to survive, and not only survive, perpetrate additional crimes. So they're cutting up desks, whatever they can get their hands on, right?
Yeah. I've seen videos. They've done videos of guys that were weapons making experts, and they've actually, some of these guys have actually been willing to go on video, and usually it's the investigative services unit that'll go in and film these types of things happening, but they'll make weapons, plastic weapons out of styrofoam cups or plastic bottles that they have, that shampoo, or those types of things. I mean, some of these guys are very, very intelligent. And by the way, some of the best artists that I've ever seen in my life are in prison.
Behind bars.
Yeah. And whether it's tattoo artists, and you're not supposed to tattoo in prison, but it happens, or, just drawings or those. I mean, there is some talented people in prison. They just chose to not utilize those talents in the best of ways and commit crimes. But
well, yeah. I cut you off there. Sorry, with regard to the creativeness and somebody trying to stab you. What happened?
Yeah, so they activated the SWAT team to go in and remove the weapons out of these cells, and these guys had barricaded their cell doors, and they knew we were coming for them. The line staff had been doing cell extractions previously, and then once that officer got stabbed in the leg, they pulled all the line staff out, activated the special emergency response team, and we went in and did, I think it was somewhere around 16, 17 hours of cell extractions.
How many cell extractions is that?
We did, God, it's been so long. They called it March Madness. It happened in March, obviously. There were so many cell extractions that night, and so it was off the hook. But they called it March Madness. So the very first, it was the first or the second cell that I was going into. We had Arizona doors, which are doors where holes have been drilled in, and perforated doors, right? And these guys had taken a mattress and they tied the mattress through the holes so that they could barricade the door. So when we tried to open the door electronically or try to pop it open, it wouldn't move. Mm-hmm. Right. So we had to put a come along on the door. And as we were using the come along to open the door, we had the door open about 4 inches. And the first guy in, he's a shield man, and he's going to have contact with the first inmate. And then I'm the second guy in. And so I had my head hunched down behind the shield man, and I felt tap, tap, tap on the back of my head. It was actually a little harder than a tap. And I thought it was the guy behind me smacking me in the back of the head, get me fired up to go inside the cell. And I'm like, hey, I'm like, quit hitting me. The door's not open. No, I'm not hitting you. And I'm like, okay, somebody's hitting me. And it wasn't until the door popped and that mattress fell off. The first inmate jumped off the top bunk onto the shield man. And from there, it was a fight between those two. And the second guy came in, and he rushed forward, made contact with me. I was a pretty big kid back then. I ran him up against the back of the cell, landed on top of him. And when I did, his right hand fell to the side. And what I saw was a knife that had been tethered to his hand. So if he lost control of the knife, he would be able to pull it right back to his hand and gain control of the knife again. And so I told him, I said, you touch the knife or you reach for the knife, and I'm gonna break your fucking arm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was the second cell. And then when we went back and watched the videos after the fact, it was then that we realized that was the guy. He had the knife in his hand, and he was coming outside that 4-inch door opening, and he was smacking me in the back of the head with the knife. But because I had a riot helmet on and I had all my gear on, it didn't penetrate. He wound up being charged with attempted murder on a peace officer, wound up getting an additional 7 years. But so this was the second door of that was the second door. So needless to say, my adrenaline was off the hook. And like I said, I didn't realize until we went back and watched the video of what exactly was happening, but I knew he had a knife, and I knew that he was the guy that I had contact with. And that's close. It's close. Exactly.
That's really close. I'm just wrapping my head around this whole thing that you're basically, for people that don't know what a come along is, think of like it's a human powered winch, effectively. And you're cranking this thing to create space so that you can get in the door. I mean, this must feel like an eternity, dude. Like,
by the way,
like slow motion, like just.
Oh, yeah. By the way, they're throwing piss and shit through the door on top of you.
That's where I was going with this. So it's not just like they're not waiting for you.
No, they're not waiting. In fact, they soaped up the cell floor. They put shampoo and soap on the cell floor. So when you go in, you slip and fall, then they jump on top of you. And then, if they have weapons, they'll try to stab you or, try to beat you down, that type of thing. And by the way, there's, 200 sets of eyes that are watching this whole thing going because all the other inmates are at their cell doors. Watching all this stuff.
And learning.
Oh, absolutely. Because, one of those cells is the next cell we're going into, right? And we're throwing flashbangs, out. We're lighting off flashbangs out on the outside of the building to try to draw attention to the back of the cell just momentarily so we can pop the cell door open and get in there and handle business. But the flashbangs weren't working. We had a lot of tools that we couldn't use because it was inside. We threw gases in there, tear gas, CN, that type of thing. Sure. CN has very little effect. Pepper spray has very little effect when these guys have shirts wrapped around their faces and their eyes and they soak them, so it's a filtration device that they have so that the chemicals that we use don't work. So it really comes down to physical force. And this is a long time ago. This was many years ago.
But still,
there's more tools out there now for the people. And cell extractions, not that there's a thing of the past, but thankfully for my brothers and sisters, they don't have to deal with the number of cell extractions that they used to.
There you have it. The first 25 episodes of Iron Sights After Dark. I truly hope that you enjoyed listening to them as much as I enjoyed putting them together. And I'm always honored to get your feedback and comments. So thanks for listening and hope you continue to enjoy the show. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Iron Sights. If you enjoyed our conversation, you can support our mission by hitting the subscribe button, leaving a review, and sharing the podcast with a friend. I'll see you on the next episode.